All right. Welcome, everybody, to season 2, episode 3 or 4 now of the Long Ball podcast here in season 2. Newsom Sports ATO, Blake, along with my guy Hayden, Mets Talk Hayden. If you want to put your Twitter down in your bio as well, you feel free so you guys can follow us after the show. It's been about 10 or 11 days since we last talked. We're getting ever so closer to Christmas, and the stove keeps boiling over. Hayden's team and my team deeply in the mix in both different facets. The league has been crazy, and maybe it's unfortunate that all the good free agents are probably going to be off the board by New Year's, so it might be a long January and February as we wait for the World Baseball Classic and for the college baseball fans out there as well. But yeah, how you been the last week or two, Hayden?
Yeah, things have been going pretty well. No major complaints. Obviously, been very happy with how things have transpired in the last 72 hours. Definitely been an interesting past 72 hours for me as a New York Mets fan and just as a baseball fan. Got a lot of good stuff to talk about. Free agency, Trevor Bauer news, a lot of breaking news coming in the last 72 hours with baseball. So definitely going to be a fun stream today. Plenty to talk about. Crazy to see how there's I was looking at a list of what free agents are left, and the list is you have Conforto, Pham, and then drops to guys that I've never really heard of. But yeah, LFGM.
That's true. And you guys have definitely been stirring up the market with that $14 billion owner of you guys. We'll definitely get into Mets and Braves talk later. For me, my mom was basically just on a week-long vacation, so I've had the house to myself for until last night. I haven't really seen her at all. She got in late. I was already in bed, so I haven't seen my mom in 6 days. That's good and bad, for everybody out there. I just been watching some NFL football, been watching some of the college bowls. NBA's been breaking my heart recently. My Hawks choking just like the Falcons every single game. So I'm ready for baseball to start back up, if that makes sense. So we'll get into some of the news here for sure. Again, we'll talk about Braves and Mets in a little bit. So we're gonna start it off headed out west, out in Hollywood. Got themselves both Noah Syndergaard in a free agent deal with the Philadelphia Phillies, bringing him over, Thunder, or whatever you want to call him, to try to solidify some of that rotational issue that we were talking about in earlier episodes. And also throw in the fact that they got JP Fireisen to the bullpen, from Tampa. The guy's been nasty the last couple of years. And he's going to be another big piece for the Dodgers bullpen, probably for the next couple of years if they keep his magic going that he learned down in Tropicana. So what was your, Syndergaard hate aside, what were your first initial reactions to both of these new Dodgers being claimed to LA?
Yeah, I mean, Syndergaard going to LA is definitely an interesting move. Move that I was kind of surprised. I didn't really think Syndergaard was the type of guy that would thrive out well in Los Angeles. Obviously, Syndergaard and the Dodgers have past animosity from a guy by the name of Chase Utley, if anyone's ever heard of him. Obviously, we all know what happened the NLDS when Utley with the dirty slide, and Syndergaard wasn't too keen on that. Obviously, he threw at him 2016, and so I don't know. But that aside, I think it's going to be an interesting move. I guess it's going to be if Syndergaard could really get back to where he was prior to Tommy John. You know how he was. He got Tommy John before 2020 really started. It was like February 2020. Missed the whole season. Came back in in September of 2021. Left the Mets. Went to Philadelphia and really struggled out there. Came to the point where they just threw him in the bullpen like any team would do with a struggling pitcher, and you didn't really get much. And I guess now it's going to be, can Syndergaard get his velocity up? I guess that's the goal. His goal is to get his velocity back up to 100 miles per hour. He's confident. The Dodgers are confident. I'm sure he will. How to cure Tommy John? Time. That's literally the best thing. He's young. He's not 39 or 40. He's 30 years old. He just turned 30. So he's young. Yeah. He'll definitely come back from that. I definitely think this helps out the Dodgers quite some bit in terms of their rotation. In terms of their rotation depth, I know that they were, obviously you lost a couple guys in that rotation, obviously. But right now it definitely, keeps it secure. He could be this 4 or 5 starter for them. So definitely a good move for the Dodgers in terms of getting Syndergaard. Fire Eisen, same thing. Could be a nice little, on the Rays, sneaky. He could be this, long reliever type guy. So, Dodgers pitching, definitely, the 4 and 5 hole was kind of a worry. I think, bringing in Fire Eisen and Syndergaard was some sort of remedy to that.
For sure. I mean, the Dodgers have had great recent history on kind of figuring out these veteran starting and reliever guys, especially if they take them in from another organization that's well with developing pitchers. The ones that are starting to struggle, they kind of take them back in under their, their wings, and they're fine. If you look at the most recent one, would probably be either Evan Phillips or David Price. David Price was never really a starter in LA, but he turned out to be one of the best inning eaters in baseball for LA the last couple of years. And the list kind of goes on and on. I mean, you don't really see a lot of guys that go to LA, and Craig Kimbrell was really the odd one out, where you don't see their strikeout percentage go up and their barrel rates go down. And all of a sudden these pitchers turn back the clock, and they always are always going to buy at the deadline. So we talked about it on a past show, and for, the certain Dodger fans that I know kind of tune into us every once in a while, I'm sure they're kind of aware that we said they could probably use a little bit of help in the rotation, probably a little bit of help in the bullpen, but they usually get it. That's a good step towards it. We have another news on the Dodgers rotation that we'll get to definitely later on, which is, breaking news from about an hour ago. But if you look at the rotation now, you still got Kershaw, you still got Gonsolin. I'm starting to think that this is the Dustin May breakout year. You got Julio Urias, so I completely forgot about last episode somehow. Now you got Syndergaard. That's not a bad rotation at all. And sure, in the bullpen-wise, you still got Evan Phillips. You still got Gratterall. Vesey is starting to become pretty nasty. Now you have guys like Fire Eisen in there, and I'm sure there's others that we're not thinking of at this moment in time that are also pretty good ball players. That's a good bullpen. That looks like a Dodgers team. That's for sure. Their lineup doesn't look as good as it has the last couple of years, but who knows? It's only December. They can still add. They still got, they went out and got JT Martinez the other day, which I guess is another thing we should probably kind of talk on. I call it a delay trade with Justin Turner going to Boston and JD Martinez going to LA. I kind of think that was they saw each other passing in the hallways and kind of gave each other, the evil look. But I think Martinez will do probably better in LA than Justin Turner has the last couple of years. And it's interesting for Devers having another veteran third baseman coming into the offices to see how that competition really takes shape. But yeah, I think that's all for the Dodgers for now. We'll definitely get back into them with a so-and-so social media picture news later on. So we're going to go up the coast a little bit, talking about Ross Stripling, the veteran, going from Toronto to the Bay Area, going to play with the San Francisco Giants on a one-year deal. It kind of help out the rest of the rotation. They lost Carlos Rodon. We'll talk about him later. They still got Logan Webb. They still got guys like Descafani, but that rotation's not as strong as it was a couple of years ago. And now you have the chance to kind of bring in some veterans to kind of tool it back together for the time being. They did a good job with that. And they also signed Carlos Correa to a 13-year deal, has him under contract to 41. Oh, wait. It was canceled 3 hours before the media had a chance to bring him in as a Giant. And who does he go to, Hayden?
The New York Metropolitans.
John Heyman, middle of the night, bombs all of baseball Twitter, saying that he's now got a 12-year deal and he's going to play freaking third base for the New York Mets. How crazy is Steve Cohen? Hayden, floor is yours.
Uncle Stevie, absolutely. I'll tell you. Interesting day for sure. I went to bed at like 2:30. It's probably like 30 minutes before the news broke. Woke up at like 1. And
yeah, I feel that.
I wake up and I have like 20 text messages. And I'm like, that's a first. In the span of like 8 hours, I have 20 text messages. And I don't know. I was like, okay, that's weird. Because usually, I'm a Snapchat type guy. And I look at it, and it's people that I don't really talk to, just, casual baseball people. And I'm like, okay, what's up? And I look on Snapchat, and I see one of my friends text me Correa, LFGM. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, isn't like my brain on? pull up to Twitter, Correa to the Mets, Correa to the Mets, Giants failed, Correa. I'm like, bro, what? And then I was completely in shock. Obviously, we know with the San Francisco Giants that he was in an agreement with them for 6 days pending physical. And that's the issue with like a lot of people is when a free agent signs, they always say pending physical. People just say, oh, screw the physical. He's fine. In terms of if it was the physical, I don't know. I heard some rumors that it was BS, that there really was nothing wrong with him. The Mets had the physical with him today. No reports, nothing, inadequate that the Mets or, their medical department reported of. I really don't know what happened with the Giants. I heard a rumor that the Giants executives weren't really on board from the beginning, and that was kind of just like a BS excuse to get him out. And then the Mets swooped in, gave him a deal. I believe it was a year less with I think an AAV just a little bit below. And then the Mets swooped in. Steve Cohen, Billy Epler, and the Mets front office worked their typical magic like they've been doing. And then Carlos Correa signed with the New York Mets. Obviously, he had his physical today. In terms of the contract, I know it was, what was it? It was 11 years, 300 and it was obviously with the Giants, he had 13 years, 350 million. Now he's going to have 12 years, 315 million. So you have one less year, and then that AAV is shrunk to a pretty good extent. So he's going for lesser money. He's going for a less year. Obviously, he's 28 years old, just turned 28 a couple months ago. So interesting in terms of the contract. I don't think it's horrible. I mean, I'm really not like crazy about giving like 29 and 30-year-olds these 13, 12-year contracts, because then it's like, you really expect guys like Correa and Turner and Lindor to be playing all-star caliber, elite caliber at the age of 40. I mean, hey, if that's the case, then sure. So I don't know. But that being aside, absolutely mind-boggling that Correa is going to be a Met. It does a lot for this New York Mets lineup, no doubt. Obviously, bringing in Correa, you shift him over at third base, something that he actually was willing to do. He didn't have any inadequate feelings about it. He voluntarily said he would love to play third base. And you're going to have an infield now of Correa at third, Lindor at short, McNeil at second, Alonso at first. Pretty darn good infield. That's a scary infield. Defensively, offensively, that's nuts. Correa brings some pop. He has a nice bat. I mean, he's a guy who could hit, 25, 30 homers, 30 doubles, extra base hits, whatever. He has great speed on the base paths. So, offensively, you get a great guy there offensively. Defensively, he has a great arm. This dude is capable from, at the shortstop position, throwing 99 miles per hour to the first baseman. He has tremendous velocity. Defensively, he's a gem. And I know a lot of people were a little worried. They say like, so many guys in the past did much better at shortstop. They're talking about like Alex Rodriguez, Cal Ripken Jr. I don't really care about that, because those guys started off at third and then they shipped over to shortstop. This is a guy who's shifting from shortstop to third base. I don't really think it's that big of an issue. It's an extra 10, 15 feet. You have two of the best defensive players next to you. You have Lindor, you have McNeil. They're banning the shift, so you won't be seeing like Correa playing next to Alonso or any of that like shenanigans. I think it's going to be phenomenal. I guess it comes into question is, okay, you have Correa at third. What do you do with Escobar? Well, Eduardo Escobar's on a 1 year, he has 1 year left on his contract. Do you DH him? He had an unfortunate year last year. He showed up big in September and October. Do you have the confidence he'll return to that form? Possibly. I would say you keep Escobar as a DH bench piece caliber player. You could still start him at third on some days, more a DH role. Obviously, Mets prospect Brett Beatty, who the Mets are very high on. Sorry, Beatty, you're probably going to be an outfielder now. They'll probably put him in left.
You can play left field though.
Yeah, so definitely an interesting move. Super happy about it.
I mean, I
Pretty
look at it
deadly.
this way, right? It's not like Dom Smith is going to play left field for the Mets. You're having a
Oh,
top three
oh,
shortstop playing third with another elite defensive shortstop right next to him. So, as you said, the glove plays, the arm, it's not really that much of a different throw. I mean, some of his acrobatic throws he's made over the years, saving Bregman's tail, have basically been from third base.
yeah.
And I believe, I mean, shoot, this is for the last year or so. I said the Mets lineup probably is an Atlanta level because I mean, you guys are scrappy. You guys have the days where you get all the, you put the ball in play and you put it in the right spot, right? You find the holes. You guys work the counts to get on base. But I said, I don't think they have the lineup. And you saw there was multiple slumps the last couple of years with the Mets lineup where it didn't look like they were scary at points in time. That's another clutch bat to add to that lineup where all of a sudden it looks a little bit more scary. I said if they go get a DH and they go get a third baseman, didn't know it'd be Carlos Correa at third base, but if they went out and got a DH and or shorts third baseman, that lineup would be a lot more deep. And suddenly it is. You guys still have Guillorme. He's available off the bench. You got Escobar and Vogelbach able to DH, like depending on, the matchup. So this lineup is really good. And, if we look at it from the Steve Cohen side of things, and we haven't even really spoke on the rest of the deals you guys have made. Well, I guess we did kind of talk about Nimmo and all the other starters. So they've had their time in the time on air, but he said everything he's gonna say. You guys are on track to win a World Series in the first 5 years. Payrolls through the roof. Really a middle finger to the owners that don't want to spend, saying, "Haha, well, I will." But I think the most interesting part is that people, for the people that say that you guys met, talent is going to overplay mistakes. The Mets are stacked. I think they're a better team than the Atlanta Braves right now. I didn't say that last year. They are. And if you just look at this team, it's 26 guys that are just able to go out and just do anything. It's honestly scary, from being an insider in the National League East. But I lost my original thought process there. But man, you guys are good. And you guys, went from, 25 years at the Wilpons, or even longer than that. I'm not absolutely sure. You guys are
Wilpons, Cats family. They're, it comes to a point where Mets fans deserve this. Like you said, the Mets were thrown with the Wilpons and Cats family, where, I mean, we're going to get more into James McCann, Robinson Cano. They are paying them to not play on the Mets. The Mets are paying 75% of McCann's contract. So what is that, like $14 million for the next 2 years, AAV, to go play in Baltimore. They're paying Robinson Cano to sit wherever the hell he is every day. The Wilpons were around. You bet they'd be in the dugout, geared up, getting ready to go play, trying to sell season tickets, posters of them. The Mets deserve this. Mets fans deserve this. And, it's upsetting that there's owners out there. See, Cincinnati Reds.
Oakland's the big one. Oakland's the big one. They're like seventh. He's like seventh biggest.
When I see that, sell the team. If you're going to sit there and be cheap and, huddle all your money, sell the team. Sell the team to someone that's actually going to invest in the club. That's the thing about Steve Cohen is, I mean, financially, he's always been involved. Obviously, I could talk all, about his hedge funds and all that stuff in the past. This is a hobby for him. He has his main source of income in his hedge fund. This is a hobby for him. He doesn't care if he makes money or loses money. All the other owners are not in that case. They want to keep the money. They want to save every penny. You look at it with teams like the Reds and the Athletics.
I mean, since Steinbrenner died and, his son took over, they haven't been the same either. They've spent, but they haven't been that same way as, what Hal was.
And now it goes Steve Cohen, Steinbrenner, maybe make it like the Dodgers, the Padres.
Magic Johnson.
It's embarrassing that there's teams out there like the Reds and the Athletics and whoever that just don't spend. I just say sell the team to someone that's going to invest in it. This isn't like, I mean, I could practically buy the Oakland Athletics. I mean, it's like players, begging for a bag of peanuts. I mean, it's horrible, and I really do feel for those fans that are Reds and Athletics fans. They're passionate.
Reds got a big fan base too. Like we've talked about this before. Until the last couple of years, Cincinnati has been a Reds town. It's now a Bengals town. Cincinnati.
I was there over the summer on Father's Day. Stadium was packed, and I mean, it wasn't an electric stadium. I mean, I understand why, but
in years past it had been though.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I think Moustakos is their latest contract to be DFA'd. I mean, some of their GM has kind of had some issues the last couple of years. The Reds, before they finally decided to implode, they couldn't decide if they were rebuilding, if they were in win now. They were kind of in this pitter patter, where depending on how weak the Central was that year, they were able to get in. But yeah, for the Oakland side of things, this brings up our next topic. Fortnite streamer and former Mets reliever Trevor May, who is a Seattle native, he said he was kind of willing to maybe play on the West Coast so he wouldn't have to travel to Florida for the spring training league and maybe play all the way across the country for a year. He takes a 1-year deal, pretty much worth a pack of peanuts, to play in Oko. There's a good chance if he does well that he's not going to be on Oakland come August and September. But, I mean, what was your initial thoughts on that? Because, I mean, his tenure as a Met, I know with some injury riddles, but it seems like he struggled in New York compared to what he was in Minnesota back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, you got 2 years out of him. Obviously, he didn't spend much time on the field. Obviously, he was really struggled with a lot of injuries. I mean, last year, plagued with injuries just from opening day of 2021. He just did not look good. He would just be throwing these 90-mile-per-hour meatballs right down the plate and goes 450 dead center. And then, he's running around, streaming, oh, let me go take my nap and gaming. And, the fans are, talking with him. And, he's a great clubhouse guy. I really like, he's active on Twitter. After every Mets win, each player had an assigned emoji. And whoever, had the best game, he'd put their emojis. So he'd do multiples. So it's let's say Alonso hit a homer, Lindor had 3 hits, McNeil had 4 hits, and Scherzer pitched 10 strikeouts. He'd add an emoji for all 4 of them. It's kind of cool he'd do that. So
what was his own emoji? Did you ever see it?
I did not see it much. Alonso's was the polar bear. I could share it up in a bit once I find it, but it was pretty cool. Each player had their emoji. But yeah, that aside, May going to the Athletics, it's whatever a deal. I mean, like you said, if he has anyewhat of an average season at the deadline, sayonara. When it comes to the Mets, I honestly didn't even really want him back. Played with injuries, just never really was a pitcher. You couldn't rely on him. Just every time he came in, I'm like, unless you were up runs and you want to save an arm, talent-wise, I just wasn't at it. Like you said, nothing with how he was to Minnesota. I know he was really Cohen's, first signing. Cohen over and
him and McCann.
James McCann, and then obviously both of those guys are gone. But yeah, I think it was a fair deal for Oakland. I mean, the fact he's going to be their most expensive player on their team says a lot. But it's Oakland.
That's very true for him to be the most expensive player. I know quickly Ottavino came back on a 1-year deal, the big slider man. They were kind of talking him up, giving him his flowers on MLB Network a couple weeks ago. My mom and I were listening to that whole segment. He was like, "Okay, guys, I know I'm good. You don't have to flower me this whole time." I knew you were kind of more on the Lugo Ottavino route more than Trevor May, and you got your wish. Seems like, I mean, with how Cohen is active with all you guys, it seems like he knows the club just like you guys. That's for sure.
Yeah,
so let's see.
Bringing back Ottavino was a nice little move. That bullpen, 7th inning, use Ottavino, 8th inning Robertson, 9th inning Diaz. That's pretty nasty. Ottavino had a really good season. I mean, best reliever for the Mets, not named Edwin Diaz. Nasty slider. 2-year deal.
Yeah.
Low risk, so I'm definitely for that. Lugo, talk for like a second, going to the Padres. They want to make him a starter. And I don't know how many times I've expressed and the analytics. He's not a starter. He's not. He's not a starter. And it's mind-boggling that professionals don't realize that oh yeah, we'll figure him out. This isn't the Mets. This is the Padres. Got called up in 2016. They used him as a starter. It's okay, whatever. Reliever. 2020, Luis Rojas decided to use him as a starter. Completely screwed him up. Completely screwed him up. And then he's dealing with injuries. He really was playing on an injury. He had that loose body and that partially torn UCL, and he just played through it. And yeah, but point is, he's not a starter. The analytics say it. I'm not going to go too into depth. The analytics say he's a one-inning guy.
With the Padres, their starting rotation from a couple of years ago, all the talent they acquired, they got Musgrove, they got Darvish, they got Snell all in the same offseason. Then they got Clevenger and Manaea all recently. They still had Lamet. They still had other guys in their system that they thought could be something. The guys in their system flopped completely. They were those guys that were kind of caught in that COVID year where they had to play at the alternate sites. Screwed up all of them. Have not heard from any of those guys since then. Lamet is the big one. A couple guys that were a couple years younger than those two. You haven't even heard them. I think they've been tossed around in minor league organizations since then. They were blocked out going into that COVID year, which a couple of them were probably major league ready because the Padres pushed their chips in going into that season by acquiring all these guys going into 2021. They never had a chance. Snell, it doesn't look like he's going back. I think it makes most sense for the Padres to try to get him back. The Manaea was a one-year thing. I can understand trying it in the fire sale. Didn't work out. He goes to, I think he's back up in San Francisco now, which is another interesting signing for them. If they can have him have a better year than he was last year, I'm pretty sure he was like a 5 ERA guy. So Manaea was god-awful last year. Snell kind of turned it on in the second half. It took him about a year to kind of figure out how to pitch outside of the Trop, and he kind of did that. He destroyed the Dodgers in the playoffs. He's had good luck against LA really since he's been there, going back to that World Series year. I think it makes most sense if you bring him back. And Darvish, he's been as good as long as we can think, but he's almost 37, 38 now. He is a kid that's coming up towards the high school age where probably in 5 years, 6 years, if his son's the real deal, he's going to be in the major leagues. So, yeah, I don't know how much longer Darvish has left. I think Joe Musgrove is definitely the ace of that team. You look at the options. I mean, Snell probably makes a lot of sense for them to bring back. They don't really have a lot of starters in their farm system from what I hear. So it's really, I would try to bring back Snell, and at least you have the big three with Musgrove, Snell, and Darvish, who's going to be good this year. I don't know if he'll fall off the cliff, but you're going to start seeing the age start to hit. Lugo, I don't think that idea is going to go very far as a starter. You've seen it, and I think I've seen it as well as a fan. That wasn't the brightest idea there from San Diego, that's for sure. So
the one inning guy, the analytics back it up. I wish him the best of luck. It's whatever.
And were we on air last time when the Bogarts went to San Diego? Pretty sure. Okay, so we'll skip over that. Looking at our notes, looking at our notes, not in the notes. We talked about Correa. Judge, of course, is going to be the next New York Yankees captain. Pretty much makes sense. I understand that completely. Look at this outfield market really quickly. You got Andrew Benintendi, 5 year, $75 million deal to the White Sox. Love that deal. Absolutely love that deal for Chicago. He gets to stay out of a big New York market, which, it seems like he was a guy that was starting to struggle there. He battled injury and never really panned out. 5 years, 75. The White Sox needed a little bit of depth, and they needed the lefty depth, and that's perfect. You get a day one starter for 5 years to fill another hole in that team. Because, everything that went wrong for the White Sox last year went wrong. Anything you could possibly think of happening went the exact opposite way of what they wanted to. So, very interesting to see how that, how that pans out. I think that'll be a very good signing for them the next couple of years. The team's just got to stay healthy. They gotta add some depth and stay healthy. And I think the White Sox and the Guardians are going to battle it out for real this year, not have 83, 84, 85, 86 wins. Battling to see the 2 seed. I think those are going to be 2 really good teams this year. So, the Twins haven't really done much. So I think it's really just a 2-team race because with Kansas City and Detroit, that's just a never-ending failed rebuild. Brandon Drury. Where did he? Oh yeah, he went to the Angels on a 1-year deal. I like that signing. I really, really, really wanted the Braves to go get Brandon Drury at the trade deadline last year, but after the signing that's we're about to talk about within the National League Central, I really wanted Brandon Drury as a Brave. I know he wasn't great for the Mets for a couple years, but he kind of found himself in the bandbox of Great American Ballpark last year. And I think it would have been perfect. He could have played some shortstop for us, some left field for us, shortstop, third base, left field for us, even some DH because Marcell Ozuna's kind of poo-poo. I think that would have been perfect. Could have filled a bunch of holes on our team with one signing, but the Braves thought otherwise. The Angels got a good one. He seems like a Los Angeles Angel, doesn't he? He fits their mold.
It does. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Drury is a pretty good player, very versatile. Like I said, you could put him anywhere in the field. His power production has definitely come up big. And he's a relatively cheap guy. You can get him for like a 15, 20 million AAV type thing. So, really nothing too horrible when it comes to the risks. So, yeah, I definitely think, the Angels, the last 3 years, everyone said, oh, this will be their year.
Yeah, I'm past that now.
They never address pitching. They never address pitching. And I mean, we could spend like a whole 30-hour stream talking about the Angels and their, what kills them every year.
Put that in the books for when the stove dies before World Baseball Classic. We'll have an Angels rant stream. What went wrong?
Angels rant. Just this, the Angels. It's just Trout, Ohtani, two best players in baseball. Anthony Rendon is just. I completely forgot he played for them and was relevant.
They gave Fletcher a new contract, and he stopped being what he was.
Angels it's an Angels type move.
They dumped him.
Maybe you put like Rendon at first, really get that desperate, and you put Drury at third. Or
I could see that. I could see Rendon to keep his injury risk down at first.
He's not fully healthy. Keep him at first, or at least on the right side of the infield, so he's not making these crazy plays. So put Drury at third. Yeah, I don't think that'll be horrible. So, I mean, I think that was a fair move for the Angels. In terms of Benintendi to the White Sox, I think that was a good move for them. Definitely, Benintendi's, this high average guy. Doesn't have like crazy power, but he's a good average guy. Good left fielder for them. I could see him doing well in guaranteed rate field. So that'll be exciting for them.
And, the last left field deal, I really wanted this guy to be a Texas Ranger because it made sense. Joey Gallo signing a 1-year, $11 million deal with Minnesota. So he's another player similar to Cody Bellinger where the last couple of years, the defense never went anywhere, but the offense completely went to crap. They weren't walking very much. The lefty power stroke was there, once every blue moon. These guys were MVP candidates 2 or 3 years ago, and now they're going to be 1-year deals in mid-markets in the middle area of the country. Funny how their stories are aligning. They were even teammates there for like 2 or 3 months. But, yeah, I thought the Joey Gallo to Texas still made a lot of sense. I think even if he wasn't great like he was for those couple of years, just having him back in Texas, a team that's probably a year away from being really, really good, would have been perfect for the fans, bringing in another piece of their lost treasure. But yeah, him going to Minnesota, I guess I'll be playing right next to Byron Buxton in the outfield. Max Kepler's probably going to be moved here later this offseason, would be my guess. He hasn't had a chance to play, a full season the last couple of years with the platoon role, and he hasn't done great in it. So I think Max Kepler's probably on the way out. It'll be interesting to see what type of team would want another, because I think Kepler's still got more talent than Gallo personally. But I guess Minnesota's just trying the 1-year route thing again because they're another team that's kind of in limbo. They don't know if they're trying to contend. They can't really do well in the playoffs. They're a big choke of a franchise recently. So, yeah, Gallo, kind of like the Kyle Gibson signing a couple of months ago where it's like, yeah, a veteran. He's not Gibson age, but it's like, yeah, a veteran on a Mantish team.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been this, he's capable, and he's done it where he's hit 35, 40 homers, give you this sub 225 average, 8-something, an 800-something OPS. He's capable of that. But lately, I mean, when he was with the Yankees, he was horrible. When he went to the Dodgers, he actually looked like, to an extent, his old Texas Rangers self. I actually wanted to go back to the Rangers. I honestly thought that could have been a solid move for Texas. I personally would have been fond of that. So yeah, I don't know, but I'll learn from guys like Byron Buxton. We'll see how things go in Minnesota.
And Byron Buxton's another guy that hasn't stayed healthy, but he has all the talent in the world. So I think they still got Gary Sanchez for a little bit longer.
Lost Gio Urshela, right? He's in the Angels, right?
Yeah, he's on the Angels now too. Yeah, so the Angels are a team where they have the talent every year, and we all, especially for us that are National League fans, we don't care if they make the playoffs. We want to see Trout and Ohtani in October, but I just don't think so anymore. The Astros are too damn good. The Mariners might be the second best team in the American League, and I think the Rangers already have them. I really do. I think the Rangers, over 162 games, are already better than the Los Angeles Angels. Which, if my friend RJ is listening, he's jumping in his chair right now. So, all right, we gave your Mets the shine earlier because they had some good news. Let's talk about Liberty Media failing my Atlanta Braves once again. Dansby Swanson signing a 7-year, $177 million contract with the Chicago Cubs. Hey, I'm glad he didn't go in the East or to a contending team in the National League like the Dodgers. If Freddie and Dansby would both be Dodgers right now, I'd be very disappointed. He seemed like a player that fits in Chicago. He did just get married to a lady who plays for the Chicago women's soccer team. And from what I hear, she only has 1 year left on her contract up there, so I don't think it matters too much on them trying to stay together because she's from Atlanta too. But I'm hearing there's more and more snippets that are coming out. Our GM Alex Anthopoulos has been on different waves of media recently talking about him coming back. And it seemed like they were already prepared for life without Dansby Swanson, as unfortunate as it is, because he was a huge part. Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, and Dansby Swanson, as my hand looks like it's got, spider webs on it. They were the guys that were on the World Series clinching play. Will Smith won a World Series with Houston last year. Freddie Freeman's a Dodger. Chicago Cub for Dansby Swanson. They're all gone. And I guess, people like to put the Braves and the Astros in the boat of like the best homegrown franchises in the league right now, where they pay the guys, they have enough money to get some sprinkling pieces, and they just go win. And you look at it, the Astros lost Springer, Garrett Cole, Carlos Correa, other pieces, and they won another ring without those guys. And I think if part of it is they're in the American League. The American League isn't as strong as the National League, and maybe if they were in the National League, they would have had some heart. That's no disrespect to the Astros at all, but I don't think it's a very fair comparison to say that they've lost guys and they rebounded. First, it took them like 5 years in between. Now they were there years in between it, but it took them 5 years to go from that first ring to winning the ring that, I guess, did world peace in the baseball world. So I think it's very unfair how our fan base is trying to put Vaughn Grissom in this Jeremy Pena shoes. He's not Jeremy Pena. No, not at all. He's 3 years younger, so, there's the potential that he could be better than Dansby in the long run, kind of like the Matt Olson deal. But the Braves are trying to win a World Series right now and in the division where you guys are spending. And a lot of the members here are Philadelphia fans. They're spending like crazy. It made no sense to me how the Braves didn't want to pay Dansby because who gives a flying hell about the 2028 ball club right now? We have stocks coming out in June. Every other contending franchise has these $190, $300 million deals where these guys are under contract till 36 years old. It's becoming less of an, oh no, what's his back half production going to be? Because Dansby's bat has trended up every year since he's been in the majors. He's always been a clutch even during his slumps. He had two big home runs in that World Series after having a meh postseason to that point. Had the tying homer in Game 4 and had a big homer in Game 6 to put the Braves up 5-0 in a game where we went on to win. And the dude went to the same high school I was planning on going to until I moved, my 7th or 8th grade year. His mom was my 2nd and 5th grade teacher. The dude is from here. He's a diehard Hawks fan. He's a diehard Falcons fan. He's one of us. He has a brand, All Things Loyal, ATL. I don't know if that's going to be much of a thing anymore, but it's really disappointing, and I wish him the best. Nothing but love for the man. It really saddens me how the Braves didn't want to have the rich get richer mentality. Where you had Dansby, especially with no shift next year, you have a guy who's Dansby's probably debatably the best defensive shortstop in baseball. He's definitely up there. Even in years where his offense wasn't the greatest, he always played a Gold Glove caliber shortstop, and that was the case this year. He finally got the Gold Glove. Vaughn Grissom is terrible defensively, and yeah, I'm sure Ron Washington will work with him. The Braves value defense very highly as a team. That showed in the Sean Murphy trade. You know, with guys like Trey Turner coming back in the division and with the noodle arms that they had back there the last couple of years, I understand it. But Vaughn Grissom could have easily turned into a Chris Taylor type player. They could have easily had Dansby have, 4 more elite years, ride the back half of that contract, and Vaughn Grissom could have turned into this Chris Taylor type stud. If you're an athlete, which he is, you can play left field. You can play DH. You can play third base and second base on days where you have to. He played second base a ton for Ozzie Albies' absence last year. I think he started 1 or 2 games last year where Austin Riley had an off day and Orlando Arcia started at second base. I would rather him be out in left field in the future than frickin' Marcell Ozuna, or once the Eddie Rosario contract ends. It just, it hurts my heart. It really does, because he was another guy after we traded for him, in his high A level with the Diamondbacks. We got 3 Gold Glove years at Ender Inciarte, a couple other prospects, and Dansby Swanson in a package for Shelby Miller, who did nothing since then, is finally being taken out of the garbage scraps by the Dodgers to try to fix him up. So it was a great deal by, then Braves manager, general manager John Campoloa. But it's really, really disappointing to see that the Braves wanted to undercut him so much. Apparently they wanted to give him $600, and he got $7,177. I understand the dude. He seems like a Chicago Cubs player. I think he fits that team very well, and I think that team's debatably better than Milwaukee Brewers right now for second place in the Central. But yeah, man, it sucks. We could have had 2 of them, I mean, you see a lot of teams try that the rich get richer mentality. They find a place for the young guys, and they keep the other guys on the ball club as long as they can as well. And that's not just the MLB. You see that in all sports. But the Braves are not one of those organizations. If they can shed payroll for a guy who could be better long-term, they're going to do it. And it happened to Freddie. It happened to Dansby Swanson. Max Fried is our big guy who has not been extended yet. He's got 2 years left on his contract. He's going to get Carlos Rodon money, and he deserves it. But I don't think it's going to be for the Braves. I think Max Fried has 2 years left in a Braves uniform. And I think all of us are going to come to copes with that. It's a lot easier to be ready for it than to have it happen and break your heart. So, yeah, while there was times where Dansby slumped and had to have some minor league, rehabs when he was younger, the dude got better and better as the years came, the years played on, was always a clutch performer, always got the big hit, was always great in the playoffs. And he got our city a first World Series championship in 26 years. So, yeah, he was like 2 years old when they last won it in 5. And he was part of the team that got us back into the World Series history. So, wish him the best. I really do. He's a great guy. I've met him a couple times, and he's the type of guy that you see on TV. He's this nice Southern guy. So, sucks for him. Or sucks for the Braves, and it's great for him. I understand taking an extra year and getting another $77 million. Who wouldn't? So, there's ownership failing us again. Trying to see if we have anything left here. Talked about Carlos Correa, Judge, Dansby. Yeah, talked about James McCann, Drury. The Sean Murphy thing, I guess we can elaborate if necessary. Will Myers, of course, where'd he sign today?
He signed with the Reds. But to touch briefly on the Dansby Swanson move.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
It's a move that I feel obviously a lot of Braves fans are upset about. But it was a move that really made me shake my head. Obviously, I get it financially, whatever. He took the Cubs offer over the Braves.
He wanted to be a Brave too, from what I heard. He had multiple talks mid-year to try to get a contract, but it never.
And obviously, I blame the Braves front office with this because right now you look at what's going on in the NL East. Philly's got Turner. The Mets got everyone.
We got Jordan Luplow and 1 year Joey Jimenez.
The Braves lose Dansby Swanson and replace him with Vaughn Grissom.
Which we don't know if he'll be that.
That's a no-no.
We didn't push the chips for Brian Reynolds.
This is a team that is going to try to compete. You're going to be a third-place team if that's going to be the case. Listen, I'm sure they'll figure something out with the shortstop position. Dansby, listen, as a Mets fan, I could say this for the Braves. He was with y'all during your rebuild. You guys draft. I think he was drafted by the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, he was traded to us. It was like high A level.
Yeah. So yes. Okay. So I guess you could technically say to an extent he's kind of homegrown. The later years of his development, he was with the Braves. Obviously, him and Freddie were together. In the rough years in 16, 17, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then won the World Series and then kind of set the Braves for a new future. And he's a great player. Obviously, like you said, solid on the field. Offensively, he's great. A lot of great power production, average, whatever. Great sprint, speed, whatever. He's a great all around shortstop. He's 28, 29 now, so that's prime age.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's unfortunate for the Braves. It really is. I think for the Cubs, I think it's a great move for them. I mean, how could it not be? I mean, this is going to have an infield of, a hypothetical of,
I think him and Ian Happ are going to be good friends too. I think him and Ian Happ's my guys that'll be headed off to day one.
But yeah, I mean, there's a Cubs infield hypothetical of, like Nico Horner, Nick Madrigal, Dansby Swanson, Patrick Wisdom. I mean, that's a pretty decent infield in my opinion. I mean, it's not like a Mets infield, but
yeah,
I think it's a fair infield for a team that's in a weak division and still deciding what they're trying to do. So we'll see how things go there.
I said this the other night. I posted a little Twitter audio recording of after the Carlos Correa signing, just a kind of a mini rant on what you guys in Philly are doing and how Alex Anthopoulos won us a World Series per se. It's been very disappointing to see you guys go out and get everybody. You retain the guys you needed and you got other pieces. The Phillies got the best shortstop in baseball. They added to their bullpen. They got a better four-starter to better him, because I would say Taijuan Walker is probably better than Noah Syndergaard. The Phillies got better as a team as well. You could maybe debate that the Braves are still better than Philly. They freaking crapped on us in October. So if it's close, you got to give them the edge just based off the recent memory. And we're out here going to get Jordan Luplow. We traded our best positional player prospect for 1 year of Joe Jimenez. And sure, yeah, we got Sean Murphy, but we lost an all-star catcher in the process who could have easily DH'd and been better than Marcell Ozuna. I mean, hey, Anthopoulos, most professional leagues are more of what have you done for me recently than what have you done for me in the past. Yeah. The Acuna and Ozzie deals are like 5 years back now. And sure, they handed out $500 million contracts in total to all the guys they could lock up last year. But it's very disappointing to see you guys in the Phillies just ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. And sure, maybe you guys didn't have the homegrown talent level that we had, but you've definitely surpassed us with money. Money is evil if you don't use it and it's used against you, and that's exactly the case for us right now. We could have easily had Grissom somewhere else and kept Dansby. We could have tried to push the chips for Brian Reynolds, but we settled for frickin' Jordan Luplow. Hell, I would have taken Adam Duvall or Robbie Grossman for one more year over Jordan Luplow to platoon with Eddie Rosario. Marcell Ozuna is still on the team. He was icky last year, and we don't want that assault man on this team for the last 2 years of his contract. We want him out of here, but nobody will take him. That's the issue. So it looks like he'll probably be DFA'd going into 2024, with 1 year left on his deal. So, yeah, man, it's tough. Yeah, sure, we got the World Series, and it's not like we're going to be terrible for the next coming years. You get in the postseason, you have a chance to naturally lose a dogfight. Who knows? The Braves could still win the East this year. We don't know, but it doesn't look like it. They gave you guys a fighting chance the last 2 years. I think you guys are probably the clear favorite this year. And Philly is probably neck and neck with us. And because of the recent postseason victory and with their additions, you have to think that they're better. And call me a bad fan, Braves fans, if you're listening. Call me a bad fan. I'm an honest one. I keep it a buck. And we're not a second place or first place team in the division right now. I'll still be at a lot of games. Hopefully I'm working there as an usher again next season and able to see, 81 games in person. But it's very disappointing to say the least. And I guess for the Cubs side of things, they get their middle infield tuned up. The Madrigal trade never really worked out for both sides. You know, Cody Hoover's been okay for the Cubs, but Craig Kimbrell was terrible in Chicago. He was quickly shipped out to LA, and he was terrible there. So that trade was kind of a wash for the most part. But you know, Nico Horner kind of turned out to be one of their bright spots last year. He was not that bad defensively, and now he goes to a position where he doesn't have to play as good at the defensive, you know, side of the ball. You got Wisdom at third, or who's at third for them? Wisdom, right? Or is he
You could put Wisdom at third or first. He's kind of, you know.
They lost the catcher. I'm surprised. From what I hear, the Cubs might be in on Danny Jansen from the Blue Jays, which I think perfectly fits. The Blue Jays are trying to shed one of their catchers. They lost Contreras in division to St. Louis.
The Cubs today, talk about it for like a second. They signed Tucker Barnhart. Obviously, he was with the Tigers.
And the Reds for a while.
Tigers.
Still got Yan Gomes, too.
Was supposed to be this defensive gem. You know, he's always kind of been this, you know, low average, you know, hitter, but supposed to be a great defensive catcher. Horrible behind the plate in Detroit. And we'll see. I mean, you know, obviously behind the plate, you know, it's going to be Barnhart and Yan Gomes. You know, obviously that's, you know, a big L compared to, you know, Will Contreras. So we'll see. I mean, probably ride one of those two guys behind the plate, platoon them. We'll see.
Their outfield isn't terrible either. Christian Morel and Seiya Suzuki both entering their second seasons. Both of them are going to improve. They're taking a chance on Bellinger. Yeah, so I don't think that team's bad. You know, we said they were going to get back either Wade Miley and Drew Smyly. They brought back Smyly. They went out and got it's Jameson Taillon.
Taillon, yeah.
Syndergaard. Syndergaard seemed like a good signing for the Cubs, but they already have Syndergaard and Stroman get paired together. They got Hendricks for like one more year. Yeah, I mean, at this point, if he's your 4 or 5 starter, he's kind of in the similar boat as a guy like Charlie Morton, where you trust him to eat innings and to, you know, stay away from the barrels, you know, as long as he stays healthy, and he has been. You got Kyle Hendricks, you still got Stroman, and now Taillon. That's not a bad rotation per se with Drew Smyly. Bullpen could always use help, but again, they're in a weak division. We said if they spend money, there's an easy opportunity for them to automatically be better than Milwaukee. And if you're second in the National League Central, you got a great shot of getting in. And if you look at it, like let's play the hypothetical thing. If Carlos Correa was on the Giants right now, the National League would probably have 9 teams that would be in the mix until August, until the trade deadline. You know, a couple would sell backwards. But if you look at it, St. Louis is going to be in. Milwaukee and Chicago, at this point, one of them is going to be in. So those 3 teams are going to be playing till the trade deadline to win. Us and Philadelphia. You got the Padres and the Dodgers. The Giants are going to try to win every year. And it seemed like Arizona or Miami, who doesn't have to face, for Arizona, they don't have to face San Diego, LA, and San Francisco 60 times a year anymore. Miami doesn't have to face Atlanta, New York, and Philadelphia 60 times a year anymore. There's a chance one of those teams is even over 500 because they're both talented but in a bad division. So there was a hypothetical where you had 10 teams in the National League at 500 or better going into the trade deadline. If Carlos Correa was a Giant, I don't know if they're really in that boat much anymore because you guys said, we'll take him. But yeah, the National League's a dogfight. I think it's very comparable to the AFC for the NFL. It's the much better conference, that's for sure. There's teams that miss out, like Milwaukee and San Francisco weren't bad teams last year, but they were left out because of how good the National League was.
And I mean, that's a good point. Like you said, I mean, I really do think that, you know, you look at the AL. Okay, right now for 2023, AL West, AL West, Astros and Mariners. AL Central, that's kind of the one division, I guess you could kind of say 3 teams, Guardians, Twins, and White Sox, but whatever. The AL East, obviously, I mean, you got the Yankees, the Blue Jays.
Blue Jays are trying to get over the hump, but they haven't.
The Rays are just always going to be competitive, so kind of just like check them on that. And then the Orioles are going to be, you know, they'll probably be over 500. Boston, Pine Blue.
Don't rebuild. You guys are crazy.
Under a bus. But yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I think the NL is much more competitive. And in terms of the NL Central, I think it's the Cardinals division by far. I think they have all the talent. I think they have the defense, the speed overall. It's their division. But for that second place team who have that extra playoff spot, I wonder what the Brewers right now. They're a team that has great pitching, but no offense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, name me one guy on that team offensively
Well,
who is going to hit over above average.
They got Jesse Winker and William Contreras this offseason quietly. Those are two upgrades. I'm big on Jesse Winker bouncing back. We've had that discussion.
You know, it's like
they can't, but those are two additions to a lineup.
I mean, right now it's I guess if you're a Brewers fan, you're praying that Yelich can get anything back to what he used to be, and that your offense just can focus on this OBP on base percentage mentality, and their pitching can just really limit any runs that they give up and hope their offense scores. This is a team that a lot of Brewers games are low scoring games, like 4-3. It's not going to be, the Brewers aren't going to be scoring like 20 runs, but they're not. But the Brewers pitching, Burns, Wood, Peralta, they're only going to give up a run or two.
Lauer.
They're pitchers. They're always going to be in the Cy Young race. So I don't know. I mean, are the Brewers going to sell? Are they going to be a cruddy team? I mean, Pirates are young, so they got potential. Maybe not next year, but for a couple of years down the line. Reds are talk to me in 5 years, 4 years, whatever. So I think the Cubs
Pirates.
are,
we'll see if your owner blows you up or not. You get your cores coming together. Let's see if the owner fucks it up.
If I'm a Cubs fan, I'd be a little,
happy,
a little giddy right now.
They broke a streak 108 years ago, and I know they've only been to the postseason, twice since that mark. Dansby Swanson said he wants to win. Over the next 7 years, the Cubs are going to win. So it makes sense. They might not be good this year, but they're going to be just outside, if anything. Like, they're a team that's probably going to be barely under 500 at worst, at best 85 wins. They're going to be in that tier of teams where they got better. And depending on how their farm system is, if their owners are not going to spend, it will really determine how good the team can be longer in the next 4 or 5 years. Because, the Seiya Suzuki signing was great. Morel, we'll really have to see if he was we got to hope that he doesn't turn into the next Akil Baddoo, where he had a great rookie season and then everything fell apart. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. Bellinger, they're taking a shot at him, and if they like him, they'll probably come back. I think he's a guy that seems like he could fit in Chicago. We're forgetting about Ian Happ. He's good as well. We mentioned him already. I think he's turned out to be really one of the most underrated players in baseball the last couple of years. He's still got the two Patricks at the corners. They'll probably end up keeping one of them. Horner, Swanson, Madrigal's still on the team. If he has any value, they'll probably trade him for something. They're in the works on trying to get Danny Jansen. There's a chance that if they do that, either Gomes or Barnhart won't make the team out of spring training. Which, if you have Danny Jansen and Jan Gomes or Barnhart as that backup, that's not bad. Jan Gomes and Barnhart are not bad backup catchers. If Danny Jansen, who I think has a lot of talent but is blocked by the Toronto catching talent, would have a chance to play every day at Wrigley. And yeah, as we talked about with their pitching staff, you got Stroman, you got Taillon, you got Smiley, you got Hendricks. We'll really just see how the bullpen plans out, and that's really the last piece to any team that's trying to contend is finding the bullpen pieces, and you can always get them mid-season. But yeah, I think the Cubs are my hot take, and I've kind of said it for the last couple of weeks, and you did too. If they spent money, they're going to be better than Milwaukee, and they're spending money. So my prediction right now, Cardinals, Cubs, Brewers, Pirates, Reds. Still high on the Pirates. They're getting better, but the owner blows them up at any chance they get, and Brian Reynolds is trying to get out of there. They're looking at Juan Soto package. We'll see who does it. I think if they wanted to trade him, they should have done it a couple more. Unless he's a Brave, of course. I'll take him. But I think if they should have traded him a couple years ago, because now they're almost out of the rebuild. Why would you trade him now? They should have traded him 3 years ago, where there was an opportunity to get more prospects to come up with the guys that are starting to fill into AAA and the MLB level now. All right, Pirates, you do your thing. Because if they were good, they'd be a great fan base. You see how much that city loves the Penguins, and the Steelers. The one game that they made the playoffs, you heard, Cueto. Like, it's the fan base is there. They're just not going to show up for mockery. And that's what they've been the last, 23 of the last 25 years. So, I guess the last topic to see was for hopefully there's a Dodger fan listening because we're bookending the shows with you guys.
I do want to touch briefly on the James McCann news, if that's okay.
Sure.
So
Can we
yeah,
talk about
obviously.
Rodon too? Oh, Rodon
What?
and Bassett. So we're going to talk about Rodon and Bassett too.
Yeah, okay, and those two also, yeah. So obviously James McCann, obviously yesterday around like 11 o'clock at night, it was reported that the New York Mets have traded James McCann to the Baltimore Orioles for a player to be named later. A move that does not come to surprise. Obviously, the Mets signed Omar Narvaez about 2 weeks ago, and the fact is that would have left 3 definite catchers, potentially 4 on the roster. Obviously, it would have been McCann, Narvaez, Tomas Nido, and you're still kind of questioning what you're doing with your prospect in Francisco Alvarez. That's a story for another day. Will he start AAA? That's a story for another day. But regardless, you're not going to have 3 or 4 catchers on the roster. You're going to have 2, at max 3. When it comes to McCann, it's really no surprise. He's just been a horrible player for the New York Mets the last 2 years. Offensively, ground ball machine, double play machine, contributed to nothing. And then I know catcher's defense is important. Was horrible defense.
Nito's great. Nito's a great framer. McCann,
yeah, he is. But framing wise, all the defensive metrics just said that he was a really bad catcher, and he showed it. And it came to the point where everyone was just saying, start Nito or call up Alvarez out of AAA. And that's really, when it comes to that point. So I think it comes to the point where, I like McCann as a person. I mean, all he did in New York with the profit and the charity and all that stuff with the nonprofits and the charities. It's great. Unfortunately, he just was never a good ball player. And I said this, in Chicago and Detroit, he was an alternate catcher. And I think he does better in that position. I think he's better going out there 2 days a week than 5 or 6 days a week. So I think he'll do much better in Baltimore. Obviously, Adley Rutschman is their catcher for the season. It'll be his first full season. Obviously, he got called up in May of 2022. So I think McCann can fit in a nice role as the backup catcher in Baltimore. Maybe take some at-bats against lefties potentially. I don't really think any Met fan is complaining about this. You'll probably get some mid-tier AA player in return, and
that's depth. Better than what he was doing for you.
But yeah, like I said, it was a move that needed to happen. I don't like to trash talk players, but when I found out McCann left, I was pretty darn happy.
I saw, yeah.
Move that needed to happen. Focus on Narvaez and Nito and Alvarez. Francisco Alvarez, your prospect. I'm happy about it. Really am. Yeah.
And yeah, as you mentioned, he was better behind guys like Yasmin and Grandal, and I forget who that Tigers catcher was at the last couple of years of their playoff runs in the late 2010s, but he was a guy that was good enough to be a backup catcher, and I understood why, based on how that free agency class, I mean, it was a 60-game sample size of first year. It was a first-year GM for you guys in Steve Cohen's first year at the ownership. With how that catcher free agency class panned out, I can see why you guys wanted to take a chance on him, but it didn't go right. But you guys got rid of him, and I mean, I doubt you'll get cash considerations back. I don't think anybody's going to pay Steve Cohen, but if you guys go get that AA player for depth, that's all you need. So kind of talked about this on the audio thing I made the other night. Like, you guys still have 80 Vientos Alvarez. One of those guys is going to turn out to be a stud. You guys haven't paid McNeil or Alonso yet, but that's coming, and they're gonna get their dough. That's for sure. Like, both of those guys are gonna get paid, and they're not gonna get Braves gift card value. They're gonna go get 270, 280, and I know you guys will be ecstatic about that one too. So, I'm wondering if you guys.
I think Alonso is capable of getting like a 250. Yeah, I think he is. I think, I don't know if McNeil will get that, but I think Alonso is definitely going to get this 250 million. I think, 6-7 years. I think he's probably going to get something like that. McNeil, 215, 6-7 years maybe.
That's still, 500 million between those two. Close to it. Ozzy and Acuna got like 140 million. So for like lesser time, like 8 years, 140 million between the two, and you guys might get them for, 7, 8 years apiece for 200 plus million, and that's the difference in the Braves and Mets philosophies, which is they're starting to collide not only on the base path but in the front office. So let's see. We still got to talk about Carlos Rodon and Bassett. We'll start with Bassett first. Of course, the Met last year and was part of that Oakland A's rotation. With Montas and with Manaea and with all those guys from the last couple of years. A team that was always good. They were just in the Houston Astros path. 3 years, I think $63 million with the Blue Jays. I really like this move. I was really high on the Blue Jays for the last couple of years. I picked them to win the American League East last year. They had the slow start, fired Montoyo, and it was really too late to catch up to what the Yankees had kind of already started throughout their first half. So I like this move a lot. You got Gausman, you got Alek Manoah, now you got Bassett, and I forget who their 4 starter is. I know they lost.
I forgot about Hyun-Jin Ryu. Is he like any relevant? Is he like relevant?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and that's kind of the same thing with Jose Barrios. But if one of those guys are healthy, they're going to do fine. So, you got 4 guys, and that's if you're a contending team. If you have your 4 guys and your 5 started to eat innings, you're chilling. And that's what they have. They got a great lineup. They're still looking to add that lefty in the outfield, and we'll see. Maybe they're in on a guy like Max Kepler. If we talked about that mentioned earlier, who knows if Max Kepler turns out to be well, I guess they got Kevin Kiermaier, so maybe throw that idea out the window. But, the lineup is great. They're looking to try to flip Danny Jansen for bullpen assets. I think the Cubs and the Blue Jays could easily make that deal happen for both sides. And they add in Chris Bassett to rotation. I know I had him on fantasy last year, so I kind of knew how he performed start by start. But from a Mets fan perspective, how did you like his time with the Mets last year? What would you rate it?
Yeah. Honestly, the one thing I will say is Bassett, a lot of people, everyone liked Bassett, but they didn't like how he choked in the Braves series and in the wild card. Otherwise, people like Bassett. The one thing I will give him is he made 30 starts, exactly 30. He was healthy. He was consistent. He went out there every 5th day and pitched. And he was an average pitcher. I mean, a sub-3 ERA just about. He has 6 pitches. So he mixed up his pitches really well. Didn't give up a lot of hard contact. Wasn't this crazy high strikeout guy, but you saw fair ground balls, a couple strikeouts. It's a good pitcher. Kept the ball in the ballpark for the most time. Had a little complexity with the long balls throughout, but otherwise, really good pitcher. Obviously, you didn't really give up a whole lot for him. You gave up Adam Oller, who's been phenomenal he's been horrible for the Oakland A's. I forgot the other dude. They were low-end prospects.
We gave him a better package for Olsen than you guys did for Bassett, that's for sure.
Oh,
we gave him Langoliers, we gave him Pache, who's, even with his bat, has been, that Andrew Jones defender, and we also gave him 2 of our top 10 arms, which apparently are in AA or maybe even AAA Las Vegas for them now, Kusick and Brady something. So
yeah, but like I said, overall, I wasn't really crazy about bringing him back. I would have no issue with it. Pretty much regardless if he left, if he didn't, I would have had no issue. However it went, it went. Yeah, I guess pretty much if he stayed, great. If he left, great. I think it comes to the point is you get a big, I guess Quintana or Senga, one of those two is going to be his replacement. And their stats. Quintana had a much better season than Bassett. Senga, we'll see, but you get, both of those guys are cheaper, so you save out there.
What made you guys choose Carrasco over Bassett, you think?
Well, Bassett opted out of his contract and selected free agency, where Carrasco didn't.
Carrasco was still under control.
Carrasco did. I really don't know. I was thinking probably because Carrasco was kind of a little bit more easier, a little bit more in a cheaper deal.
For a starter.
He was older, you got him via trade. Where Bassett was young, and I think a lot of teams would have wanted him. Yeah, but interesting.
Wow, Steve Cohen did go a cheaper route for once, huh? Taking the 5-starter.
I've wondered that too. Why did they? Would you have used Bassett in the 5th hole, and that would have been pretty darn good. But necessarily, I don't know why. Carrasco, obviously, they agreed to They both reported, to an agreement much earlier. I just think Carrasco was a little bit more willing. I think he knew that he was able to do more in New York. Obviously, he came via trade with Lindor. He's older, so I don't think the market. Yeah, obviously, I don't think he would have had as big of a market as maybe as a younger guy like Bassett. Yeah.
That's a 5-star. I mean, the dude's battled everything too. The dude's a cancer survivor. Like, I don't think any injury is going to derail his career at this point. He's been healthy the last couple of years too, so good for him as well. And I really like that deal for the Blue Jays. But their biggest rival, Carlos Rodon, going to the Bronx, huge deal. I was very surprised San Francisco or San Diego didn't try to tail this guy in. He's been fantabulous the last 2 years. Always battled injuries the last couple of years, was finally able to stay healthy, and he got the money that he was looking like he could have been the guy for Chicago behind Giolito a couple of years ago. Didn't turn out to be the case. And, yeah, I'm excited to see what he does with New York. The Yankees debatably have the best rotation in baseball. Like, it really depends if Frankie Montas stays healthy, because Severino was healthy for, most of last year. A lot more healthy than he had been in previous seasons. You got Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon, your righty-lefty 1-2 punch that are both getting paid bank. That's great. Nestor Cortez has come on, and he took the big step that everybody in Yankee land wished he had made, and he did. Severino was a guy that came up through their system and battled injury, but is back, and when he was healthy, it looked like the old self. And now you got Frankie Montas, who came over that trade at the deadline. Maybe you guys were also in the conversation, but I would probably give the nod to the Yankees as the best rotation in baseball. And with an offense like theirs, I mean, even if there's times like last year where Judge is doing it all, it might be a Brewers situation where they're able to win games 4-3 because their bullpen is not bad at all, and their rotation's elite. I mean, what was your initial takeaway on him choosing New York at the very end?
Yeah, I mean, Rodon going to the Yankees, I think, and I think we may have discussed it last stream, but just to keep it a little bit vague and basic, it's a nice move for them. I think right now, definitely, a nice lefty in their rotation, lefty presence is big. I always do think, having a lefty in the rotation is vital. I do value that.
3.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, there's a lot of lineups in baseball who struggle against left-handed pitching, and that could be good for them there.
Rodon, go get another lefty. Wish we got Eric Lauer back from Milwaukee, man. Ugh.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, Rodon, I think he's a guy that's going to fit well in New York. He's prime age. I think he just turned 30. So, he could really spend a lot of really for almost the rest of his career there. Pitching behind a guy like Garrett Cole, could be a solid 1-2 punch. Definitely can. He's been healthy lately. Health and being consistent and going out there every 5 days is going to be the concern. But last year he proved that wasn't a point. And even in the times he was, he was MIA for a start. Pitched electric. I mean, he's going to be in the AL Cy Young race with guys like Garrett Cole. That's going to be a fun race to watch. He's a phenomenal pitcher. I mean, we're talking like 90th percentile in strikeout percentage. Heavy strikeout guy.
He's fun to watch.
Doesn't really give up a whole lot of hard contact. I do worry about the short porch at Yankee Stadium. He's a lefty, so we'll see how he could fare against that. Hopefully, that won't inflate his numbers too crazy. Nice curveball, nice slider, great secondary pitches, very very nasty pitchers. So, but definitely a big breakout candidate. The last 3 years, really ever since the no-hitter. Early 2021, he's really been a big guy, obviously. So, I think I'll have a good time in New York.
I think, and they showed him in his press conference. He shaved the beard, shaved the mustache. He looks good without it. There's guys that go there. You're like, whoa, this ain't gonna work. Like the Joey Gallo when he shaved, you already kind of knew, like, he's not the guy built for this. And I guess if he wanted to, he could make himself look like Nestor Cortez's twin and have the little firefighter mustache, but. We'll see, but yeah, I think those are two great pitchers going to a very competitive division in the American League East. All right, last topic, of course, broke right before we went on the air. Trevor Bauer had his Supreme Court case won against Major League Baseball. He had a 324-game suspension that was starting effective at the start of last season because, the rest of 2021, he was on administrative leave waiting for all the details to come out, and they put him on a 2-year suspension going into last season. And the Dodgers only played 4 playoff games last year, and that's a similar case with Fernando. The Padres went deep in the playoffs, which took like 6 or 7 games off of the Fernando suspension going into this year. The Dodgers were not as fortunate for once. Wow, they didn't go deep in October and choke. They choked early. They only took 4 games off, but as of this point in time, he's going to be reinstated immediately, and I think there's only like 25 games or so left on his suspension. They dropped it from 324 games to 194. And if you look at it, they played 166 games last year, including the division series against San Diego. So
do those count?
Yes, same. Okay. Yeah, that's why it's the same thing for Fernando Tatis, where his suspension's shorter because the Padres played 3 games versus you guys, 7 games versus. And if they could have got it back to San Diego against Philadelphia, there'd be another series shorter for Fernando's reentry back to the league. And for position players, you can kind of come back a little bit quicker from suspension than position players because then they gotta reamp their arms. They gotta see AA. They gotta see AAA. Like as of this point in time, Bauer's probably going to be eligible to be cleared like beginning of May because you start like April 3rd, April 4th, and you play like 25 games the first month or so. A couple off days with Easter, and you don't want to throw too many games in the first early months with how cold it is in some environments. So it looks like he's probably about around May 1st clearance. But then you got to give him a couple weeks. I know he'll say he's ready on all his social media content. They're going to send him to Oklahoma City. They're going to send him to probably AA to get a couple rehab starts. So it's a probable if he does decide to come back to the Dodgers because he does have a player option for this year. And wouldn't that be interesting if he opted out and said, you know what, screw you guys. You wanted nothing to deal with me. I'm going to make this offseason even more interesting in the later months when we're talking about Bauer still being on the market. I don't know if anybody will give him a multi-year deal, though, so it's probably more than likely he'll be a Dodger in 2023. Yeah, it's probably more realistic you see him towards the month of June. Of course, he had the best COVID season out of any pitcher, won the Cy Young, got the big money with LA, the UCLA graduate. Rachel Luba got him that deal. I think they're both changing the baseball market in good and bad ways, that's for sure. So it's very interesting, that's for sure. We talked about the Dodgers rotation maybe need a little bit of help. Well, they got Syndergaard, and now they got Trevor Bauer. So we'll see how that plans out. That's for sure.
I don't think the Dodgers are going to re-sign him.
Well, it's
Bob Nightingale. The Dodgers plan to release Trevor Bauer, but have yet to announce a decision. I don't think they're going to keep him.
I can see that.
I think even last year, he was not a popular guy in the clubhouse. Like all the players unfollowed him on Instagram. Talk about middle school drama. I don't care, but still.
And the Dodgers are big on that. What their fan base isn't like, they go with.
Yeah, guys like Kershaw, Chris Taylor, publicly voice their, disliking in him. And I think it's going to come to a point where the clubhouse is big, and if Bauer is going to jeopardize that, I don't think the ownership likes him. I don't think the managers like him. I think they're going to release him. And I think they're going to be willing to pay however much. I think the Dodgers, like I said, are in a similar case with the Mets, Yankees. They'll pay you to not play. And I think just the Dodgers do not like him. I think they are going to release him. We'll see how, like I said, in terms of performance, I agree with you 100%. He hasn't pitched in a year and a half, about a year. So, like I said, he's a pitcher. He's not a position player. So he's going to spend a lot of time in doing workouts and in the minor leagues and rehab. So we'll see. I mean, I really don't picture him going to the Dodgers. I really think that they're going to release him. I don't think he'll opt out. He may opt out to, make sure he doesn't get released by the Dodgers. But I think there's like a 25% chance. Or no, I think there is like a
and that's one thing we guessed.
We do have something.
Sure.
Bob Nightingale. The total fine for Trevor Bauer's suspension is $37.5 million. He signed a 3-year contract, $102 million with the Dodgers. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to that right now, I mean, I really don't know if the Dodgers are going to want him back. Maybe. I mean, I think he's to an extent a little bit of a risky player. I know his personality, and it's a little bit unorthodox and unique, and okay, great, but I don't know. I think just with everything, I think a lot of teams would be a little skeptical on signing him. Personally, I don't think he's the best person. I don't think his attitude is like I definitely could act like a third grader sometimes with his girlfriend, mistress, whatever you want to call her, agent, whatever. Yeah, I don't. I think they're both very childish. And obviously, I hope the Mets do not even mention his name.
You guys almost got him the first time.
Trevor Bauer to the Mets, I was very against that.
Nightingale said it too.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, and then yeah, I don't know. I mean, Bauer, he's just in a weird spot. He has a lot going on with his, legality wise, and then obviously hasn't pitched in a year and a half, trying to rehab. I don't know.
And you see a lot of teams that are more willing to dump salary on the last year of the contract. You saw it with Jason Hayward. You saw it with Justin Upton. You saw it with Pujols. I'm thinking that the Braves will probably do it with Ozuna next offseason. It's a lot easier to DFA in the last year of a contract than before that because it's the least amount of money to eat. And again, he only signed a deal, and that was 21, 22. And it's really, if someone is willing to give him a multi-year deal, which I don't think it'll be the case, I would 100% see him probably decline his player option and go elsewhere. Because we kind of guessed it with the Correa thing. If the Dodgers fan base won't like it, they're not going to do it. We said they're not going to target him because the same thing with the Yankees is because that 2017 stink still is on him as a player to that organization. And if the clubhouse doesn't like him and, the Dodgers are a classy organization where they're not going to want to have guys with that type of background, whether he's innocent and proven that way or not, in their clubhouse and on that roster. Yeah, maybe he's a guy that he'll probably sign like a 1-year deal. Yeah, Ryan in the chat says if Trevor Bauer is innocent, I would like Boston, and that seems like a thing that would probably be the case. The Red Sox are weird. I could see the Red Sox giving him a 1-year deal and him testing the market for 2023. Another thing you didn't mention, along with the parts that we agreed with, he's like mid-30s. He's not 27, 28. He lost like 2 years of his early 30s age. And I was surprised that he didn't want to like go to Japan last year just to play.
Yeah, I would have.
I would have too. I would have gone
like an independent league. Keep up with your, just keep up with your activities.
Stop throwing out of an Arizona garage that you're constantly renovating to whatever. Like, I don't know. I used to watch this stuff a little bit back in the day, but since he's been out of the league, the stuff's been drier than it used to be. That's for sure. But yeah, that'll be a story to. I mean, I'm glad that there's another story to follow this off season. The hot stove kind of got quiet here recently because a lot of the guys are starting to get signed, and as you said, we're starting to dwindle down to past New Year's. It might be this fourth outfielder and this backup catcher and this reliever, and it'll maybe be a slog until college baseball starts, and you watch that for a couple weeks, and then you get the World Baseball Classic in March this year, and past that, it's pretty much opening day. So I'm glad the off season's going by quickly. It's definitely a lot more fun than the last couple of years with the pandemic and with the lockout. So that's for sure the case. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. Is there any other topics that we wanted to cover?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I think we covered everything with, the off season. Obviously, Trevor Bauer, that was big. Aaron Judge being named captain of the New York Yankees. I think that's a nice little thing that was, I guess, I could say, kind of expected. Aaron Judge was named the 16th captain of the New York Yankees. Obviously, press conference, they had Derek Jeter. It's a cool photo of Jeter and Judge shaking hands. That was that picture definitely. So yeah, I mean, Yankees, Judge. Judge is gonna be a Yankee for life. I mean, the thing is, he's homegrown player, automatically had success his rookie year. I get it. He's had his fair share of injuries, but he's healthy all last year. I wonder why, but we'll see. I think Judge is really going to thrive well in a Yankees uniform. I think they'll win a World Series when Judge is with them, and I think he deserves.
What do you mean by you wonder why? What do you mean by that? You said you wonder why.
Contract year, so everyone plays through injuries their contract year.
True.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, I'll see.
He hit free agency at 30 because he came up as this 24-year-old that people didn't think was going to make the roster. He ended up having a great spring training and had a great 2017, great 2018. Battled injuries, 19 short year in 2020 was great in most of 21 until the injuries hit once again. Him and Stanton are never really able to stay healthy at the same time, but they did last year for the Yankees, and that's why they won over 100 and something games or 99 games. But they were on pace to win, 130 there for a little bit, it seems. But yeah. So, wow, we basically just had an hour's length worth of, or a movie's length worth of baseball talk for the people listening. Yeah, it was, we're really at the wits of the hot stove, guys. So we're trying to pump out these content and podcasts for you guys as much as we can this offseason. Hayden and I are just trying to work around schedules, and we're trying to get these out to you guys as much as there is content to talk about. Hopefully we're not getting to the part where we have to start digging up offseason shows like the Angel rants and stuff like that, but I'm sure we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, it was great talking to you guys once again tonight. If you guys want to follow us on Twitter, first of all, subscribe to the Hardcore Sports Network, subscribe to Hayden's channel, Let's Talk with Hayden, subscribe to this channel, Blake Newsom, for whatever length you're listening or tuning into. We very much appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter. I'm here at Newsom Sports ATL. You follow me, I'll more than likely follow you back. We're talking sports there all the time. And if you want to follow Hayden, what's your Twitter at?
Yeah, you guys can follow me, Mets. Sorry. You guys can follow me on at Mets Hayden. I usually use Twitter, usually just to post about my content. If you want to DM or anything, go for it. Talk about sports or whatever I guess people like to talk about now these days. So yeah, definitely hook me up on Twitter. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and LFGM, great stream as always, and appreciate everyone for tuning in to Blake and myself. Super great off season. It's great that we don't have a virus or
CBA going back and forth.
I just had a brain fart. I was like, what happened last year? CBA lockout. Last year at this time, I mean, everyone
was like,
is there going to be a season? And imagine there was no 2022 season. Imagine there was a short season. We would have not seen Judge hit 60, 62. We would have not seen Pujols get 700. Cabrera get 3,000 hits. Pete Alonso be elite. Jeff McNeil win the batting title. We could have not seen that. So
we wouldn't have seen the Braves have their run of having the title on their back. So
yeah. So I mean, it's always grateful for baseball. And this year for the holidays, I think I got my wish. The Mets amazing offseason, and they're not done. They're going to do a lot more. So baseball, it's exciting. And I love Jim.
Do got one question for you relating to Christmas. So I see you got the Mets stuff behind you, of course. What being that it's Christmas time, what Mets type of memorabilia gift have you asked or wished for this Christmas season to add to your already big collection? I got to think myself.
Probably, some hats, jerseys.
What specifically? Like, do you want a Verlander jersey? Like, what type are we talking here?
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, I'd be open to really any Mets jersey that I don't have. I definitely got to get. I got to get Verlander. I got to get Scherzer. Still got to get Lindor. Got to get Correa. I still got to get a Nimmo. I actually don't have Nimmo yet.
Wow, you got a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, I have like 10 Pete Alonso jerseys. I have McNeil.
Do you have any of the new black ones that you guys brought back?
I have the old black Piazza, but I don't have like any modern players in the black.
You should get the black Scherzer. That would look tough.
Yeah, but I mean, I have one Alonso, one on my chair, one at school, and one on my closet. So I'm the biggest Pete Alonso fan, as everyone could tell. But yeah, I'll definitely get a couple jerseys. Probably for the holidays, what I'm asking for. Baseball memorabilia. As you could tell, I love memorabilia. I'll probably get I'm asking for a St. Louis Cardinals 2006 World Series hat. Probably get something like that. Little stuff like that is really what I'm asking for.
Yeah, I want to be a bigger jersey guy. I don't know if I'll ever be the type of person to rep other teams' jerseys or hats, but right now I have a red Ronald Acuna jersey, I have a white Austin Riley, which is kind of off-brand, so kind of sucks. It's not one of those MLB official with the cooling in it, so sometimes it hurts to wear for long periods of time. But it's whatever. I understand. The thought was that all that counts. My mom bought me a Freddie Freeman jersey right before he went to the Dodgers last year. I was like, are you freaking serious?
Uh-oh.
I forget what it was for. I think it was a Valentine's Day gift or something, because she gave it to me as like a late Valentine's Valentine's Day gift, which was like late end of February as like a late gift, and he went to the Dodgers like 3 weeks later. I'm like, man, really? So
I got a Reds jersey last year.
Oh.
I bought a Jesse Winker jersey, and then like, I kid you not, about maybe like 3 hours after I bought it, the trade came out, and I'm like,
oh man, we could have waited 3 hours
to go through this and call customer service and return it and get my money back. I'll just get the jersey. The Reds have nobody.
Jonathan India, Votto.
Yeah, that is fair. I could have got a Votto, honestly, and I probably should have got a Votto. India, I don't know.
Drury.
Who?
Brandon Drury last year.
Did they have Drury then, or did they sign him like later?
They had him till the trade deadline.
People are comparing Lindor and Correa to Jeter and A-Rod.
I can see that comparison. I really can.
I mean, as long as they like each other, because
they're best friends from already. They played Little League ball together. Of course, they were on some of the Puerto Rican teams together. I find it crazy that him, Baez, and Lindor were on their early. I don't know. I don't want to sound wrong. I don't think are they from Puerto Rico, or is their family from Puerto Rico?
So,
and same thing for Baez.
Lindor is from Puerto Rico.
And he moved here when he was young, right?
Yes, and then he moved here when he was like adolescent years. Baez is also from Puerto Rico. I don't know about Correa. I think Correa probably is also.
Because I know they played on some. They played on some Puerto Rican teams together, all three of them. And you guys have had them all recently here, and I think some of their first like AAU teams when they were like high schoolers, you had Correa, Baez, and before Baez became the that he is now, Correa, Baez, and Lindor all on the same team. Who's beating that team? Okay, maybe the high school team that had Jack Flaherty, Max Fried, and Lucas Giolito. I don't know. That's a pretty good match. I would love to see those era teams. But yeah, we're rambling on. We love you guys, and we'll talk to you guys soon. You guys have a great Christmas, and we'll probably see you one time before New Year's. And for the A, and Hayden said LFGM. I'm not going to say that from my own mouth, but we'll talk to you guys soon. So you guys have a great night.
Sayonara.